We'll call the meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Members are present except for Joe. Approval of the agenda. We have an updated agenda. 7C is scratched. We've added 7G, approve the resolution 2023-34 authorizing the execution of PA for land acquisition for airport project, and 8A, the nature energy update. Is there any other changes? Council? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda with those changes?
I'll second.
Motion by Shallen, seconded by Diane. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. Approval of the minutes of the April 19th, 2023 meeting. You all received them in your packet. Is there any changes, corrections, or clarification needed for those minutes? Hearing nothing, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Heidi, do I have a second?
I'll second. Nope.
Second by Diane. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, none against. This now brings us to our public open forum. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to the council? Is there anyone here that would like to speak to the council? Call a third time. Is there anyone that would like to speak to the council? Our public open forum is now closed. We have no public hearings. We'll now move on to reports and presentations. The 2022 audit report.
I'm Miranda Wentland with CLA, joining you this evening to present the results of the 2020 financial statement audit. In front of you this evening, you have two different packets. This document is the actual audited financial statements for the City of Sauk Center. The second file here is the document I plan to present off of. All the information within here is summarized directly from our audited financial statements. So I'll start with a brief introduction of the audit, then go through the required communications, review the audit results, and then wrap up with some key financial highlights. So starting on page 3. So we began the audit back on March 6th. We were on site for 1 day. The rest of the audit was done remotely. Between March 6th and April 24th, we did all of the audit work. We drafted the financial statements. We submitted the audit file to our quality review, and then we were able to issue the financial statements on April 24th. The audit team consisted of myself, Liz Mickelson, the manager, Shauna Jensen, a senior associate, and then we had 3 or 4 other associates joining us, and they did a lot of the detailed procedures. So our responsibility as auditors is to provide an opinion on the fair presentation of the financial statements. We do that based on a risk-based approach. We don't audit every transaction the city enters into. We start with focusing on accounts that have significant account balances or accounts that have a lot of activity flowing through those. We take a look at the internal controls, procedures, processes the city has in place, and we perform a risk assessment. Those accounts that are considered higher risk, we spend a little bit more time on. Those that are lower risk, we don't do quite as much testing. When possible, we try to confirm balances with a third party, so cash, debt, some of the payments coming from the state. We also do some detailed testing where we're vouching transactions from the accounting system back to invoices, looking at receipts coming through, and then we do a lot of current to prior analysis or current to budget. So accumulation of all of those procedures gives us the comfort that the numbers presented in the financial statements accurately reflect the net position of the city. So within the financial statements, these more significant accounting policies are outlined in Note 1. There were no unusual transactions this year to call out. The city did implement GASB 87, which is a fairly large standard impacting governments across the state. The impact directly to the city of Sauk Center was the recognition of about $5.8 million in receivable tied to the lease agreement with the hospital for the facility. That's offset by a deferred inflow, representing that in future years you will collect that $5.8 million that's used to cover your principal and interest payments on outstanding debt. So balance sheet only for the most part, no impact on your ending, or very little impact on ending fund balance. So page 5 here, the financial statements do include estimates. We've listed the estimates here. When we perform the audit, we review the reasonableness of the assumptions that go into those estimates, and we determined that they were all fair and reasonably supported. As we did all of our audit procedures, we had no adjustments that we considered to be material misstatements. So meaning the numbers that are within your financial statements here are the same numbers coming out of your accounting system. So very good job by everyone in management that took the time to review and reconcile all of those balances. Page 6, disclosures were deemed adequate, clear, and complete. There were no disagreements with management on accounting matters, no consultations with other accountants regarding accounting matters, and no major issues were discussed with management prior to our retention as auditors. Like to remind you that the audited financial statements do include the Sauk Center HRA and the Sauk Center PUC numbers. We are relying on the audits from those individual entities. We don't re-perform any test work on those. All right, so page 8, we issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. It's the highest level of assurance we can provide. It's considered a clean opinion. During our testing, we identified 2 areas that we considered to be material weaknesses in internal controls. These are very common for local governments of this size to have these 2 identified. One is lack of segregation of duties, just due to the size of your finance team. There's a lot of overlap there, so we do look for your review as well when possible to add that additional layer of review. And then overall internal controls over financial reporting, and that's tied to hiring your auditor to also prepare the financial statements, which is very common, but there is the risk that we might have missed something because we're not here on a daily basis. Our audit included reviewing Minnesota legal compliance as it relates to accounting matters. We completed 7 checklists and we had no findings noted in that area. So next we'll look at some of the financial results. The first graph starts on page 10. This is summarizing your cash and investment balances. First bars there on the left represent general funds, and then all of the other governmental funds are grouped together on the right. The light blue bar there represents 2022 activity. So you'll see cash is up about $280,000 up about $280,000 in the general fund, primarily due to the unspent ARPA dollars, and then quite a bit of an increase in your other governmental funds, and that's related to bonds that were issued during the year and were not fully spent as of 12/31. So overall, about a 5% increase in cash balances compared to the previous year. Page 11 represents your fund balance. Fund balance in the general fund came in at just over $1.6 million this year. $1.1 million of that represents unassigned balance. That's what's available for spending, has not been committed by council or restricted by outside parties. That number's pretty flat from the prior year, just a little bit of an increase there. And one of the measures that we look at for to measure financial health of the city general fund is the number of months of expenditures that are sitting in your reserves, or that unassigned balance. That came in at about 3.3 months. Normally looking at anywhere from 3 to 5 months of reserves there. So you're hitting that target. Page 12. This graph breaks down your governmental revenues. Overall governmental revenues came in at $11.9 million. The largest component of that this year is other revenues. It's up about $2.3 million from the previous year, and that's related to reimbursements on capital projects from the PUC. Your 2 primary categories, though, consistently year over year are your taxes, which represents 24% of the revenues collected, and then intergovernmental is at about 22%. Up a little bit from the prior year, up about 940,000, and that's related to the South Industrial Park. Some state aid came in for that. Page 13 represents the expenditures by category. Total expenditures came in at about 15.7 million. The largest category by far, I even had to stretch the graph a little bit this year, capital outlay. We had a lot of capital outlay this year, 8.8 million or so across the city, the largest being your Second Street project. Otherwise, the other categories are fairly consistent, a little bit of an increase here and there. Page 14, this graph represents revenues and expenditures in your general fund. Revenue came in at 3.8 million, expenditures about 4.1 million. So revenues exceeded expenditures exceeded revenue for the second year by about 298,000. There was a transfer approved subsequent to year end for about 375,000 from your hospital fund. So when we factor that in, overall net change was a positive 22,000. So. Page 15. What we've done here is just like kind of summarize some of those other governmental funds that are reported as major, and then the other governmental on the bottom summarizes all of your minor funds. Just a couple things to point out here. Capital projects, you'll see other financing sources, about 5.6 million. That's where the GO bonds are recognized. You'll see 7.7 million in capital expenditures. At the end of the year, there's about 1.3 million in unspent bond proceeds. All right, page 16. Tax increment fund, what we noted there is in 2022, land held for resale was sold for about 520,000. There was also a transfer out of your tax increment fund of 750,000 to cover capital. Overall net change was about $1,000 in your tax increment fund before transfers though. Capital project funds, issuance of debt funded your capital outlay, total capital outlay in the capital project fund, 7.7 million. And then of the 17.9 million in fund balance citywide, about 6.9 of that is reserved for debt service. All right, so we've wrapped up the audit. Everything is finalized. We're working with management to complete the state reporting form. Both the state reporting form and the financial statements will be issued or submitted to the state auditor by the June 30th deadline. Any questions?
Questions? This is the second time Heidi and I've heard this, so we did answer ours, so if
Thank you.
Diane or Shellen have anything?
No. Can't think of anything. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will move on to city engineer report. I guess Vicky gets to do that.
So a couple of things, and you're all aware of it. The 2023 Authors Project is underway. All easements have been signed. The contractor is on site and has completed the tree removal, and he's working on the grading. We did find one deeper pocket of black dirt. Otherwise, everything is going really smoothly. They're moving quite rapidly, and by July, we should see that project wrapping up. The 2022 project, which is the Second Street project, the punch list repairs are beginning this week. If you've seen them out there, you've seen pink paint being painted on things. Those are all items that need to be corrected. Sidewalk, driveways, curbs, those types of things are being corrected. And then they'll have a final lift, we believe, sometime in June. So we should be seeing that that being going in. The Info Center project, we continue to work with the contractor and his sub on the landscaping issue. We really don't want to get between the two of them because our contract is with the contractor. His with his sub is a separate contract, but the sub isn't happy, so we're trying to work that through and see if we can facilitate a resolution to that. It really has to do with erosion control in that pond from 2 springs ago. The City Hall sidewalk, we did not receive any bids. You had that crossed off your agenda. We'll have to have a conversation about how to proceed with that. And the Industrial Park project, we're just waiting for it to dry out, and we'll inspect that for anything that needs to be corrected, and the final lift will go in there. As Warren might have said, you noticed some sinking and depression where the PUC had trenched in the electrical lines, and that'll be corrected by them. So then the final lift will go on that. So there's gonna be a lot of pavement happening in Sauk Center this year. So if you have any questions I can forward on to them, I would be happy to do that.
No question? Okay, then we will Park Board report.
So the Park Board met last night, Tuesday, May 2nd, in a regular meeting. This was the first meeting of their new member, Sam Barhorst. Items on the agenda, they did get the Public Works report on park-related activities. There's a lot of things the Public Works has been doing on the last week. I'm not going to go into those details because Ben will give that in his monthly report at the next meeting. We are getting updated pricing on that fountain because of the time lapse that has happened. And so we need to get updated, and then the shipping costs too have to be finalized. On the reclamation project that's on the agenda tonight, they are recommending the trail portion only and not the total bid, and that is an action item for you. Of course, the arena capital improvements continues to stay on the agenda as we try to look at some funding options for getting those improvements done. The Hickman Park Playground will be installed in June. It is here. It's just that they have a lot of things to try to wrap up in May, including tar patch and pothole filling and stuff, and then they'll get into that in June. The mural, they're looking to have a mural for a tree memorial to be painted on the side of the Sinclair Lewis bathroom versus having the in-ground markers that we have right now. And also they received their campground reservation report. Campground opened on Monday. So far for 2023, we have 2,808 nights are reserved. And so the action for the Park Board tonight is the trail project recommendation, which is item 7B.
Okay, questions? Comments? Go to EDA report.
The EDA met today, Wednesday, May 3rd. It was their regular session. They recommend a small cities grant loan for 300 Main Street South, and that'll be in front of you at the next council meeting, not today. And then also discussed a pricing structure for the author's lot, and that'll go to the finance committee to kind of talk about that a little bit more. We got some input from them on what they really feel those lots could sell for, so we have kind of a target. And then they did some discussion on nature energy project and the ag community public meeting outcomes, which you were all at that meeting. So that's it for the EDA report.
Any questions? Okay, we'll move on to action items. 7A, accept 2022 audited financial statements.
That was pretty much the report. So subsequent to the auditor's presentation, we just need to accept those audited financial reports as final.
Okay, and I know, Joe, you missed it, but
Yeah, I'll
you
just
didn't
abstain
have a
from that.
chance, you'll just abstain, okay. Anybody have any questions? Otherwise, do I have a motion to accept the audited financial statements?
Motion to accept.
Motion by Diane,
I'll second.
second by Shallon. Last minute comments? Call the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions?
Aye.
Motion carries 4 in favor, none against, 1 abstention. 7B, approve resolution 2023-31 awarding quote for trail rehab.
So the quotes were opened for the 2023 trail rehab project on Wednesday, April 26th at 11 a.m. 8 quotes were received. You have them all in your packet. They varied. We had the total trail bid, and then we had an alternate for the skate park, and then there's the total. So that's the way these are laid out right there. The trail bid, they came in all the way from a low of $126,490 to a high of $382,479. We had a huge spread. The alternates came in anywhere from $78,084 all the way up to $280,000. So the total bid is the addition of those 2 items. The Park Board, when they met last night, they are recommending we just do column 1, which is the trail bid only. Diversified Paving, Inc. has a bid of $126,490.70. If the city does want to go with a total base bid, we have our low bidder failed to submit all the proper documents, so that would have to be eliminated. So, but the recommendation from the Park Board is to do the trail bid only to Diversified Paving for $126,490.70, and that is in your packet in the form of Resolution 2023-31.
Questions? Comments?
Just the one question, I know we budgeted the 160, that was kind of part of the street projects and stuff. Do you know, are there other projects that Ben's looking at streetwise with some
So
crack sealing and some of those things?
If we go the 126, we do have that gap, we have some budget left. We talked about a couple things, if you know, and we had talked about authors earlier, they had talked about continuing the trail that's outside the project up to Hickman. And he was giving me some estimates on that, which would likely fall in there. And the other one was we're identifying some areas of the city that could use some crack filling, so.
Okay,
Either way, I think in that 30 to 35,000 range is where we would fall.
we'd still be looking, okay. I think we will only look at that first option with our budget of 160. I don't see point to doing the alternate
Yeah,
scenario there too.
160 was,
What
what we
we-
have in the budget
Yeah.
for seal coat. Seal coat and,
Well, it's for maintenance.
or maintenance, right. Any other comments, questions?
So if I'm understanding this correctly, low bidder, I see, never mind, I'm rereading this. So the low bidder, Joe Riley, on the full reconstruct didn't submit the proper paperwork in time.
Right, so the low bid for the trail part only is diversified paper.
Oh, right. And they submitted everything on time?
Yes.
Okay.
I've got mixed feelings about doing any of it, mainly because I know we got roads, we're always running short on what we're trying to get done with maintenance on roads. We also, if we're gonna look at spending more money, and, you know, on this, we've got a roof on a hockey arena and everything else that needs to get done. And I think we gotta come down to figuring out which is gonna be a priority. I think the trails could wait another year. But we got other objectives that needs to be taken care of that could end up costing us more if we ignore it. So I'm really not leaning toward doing this, but, you know, I'm only one vote, so.
I
I
hear what,
think before we went out to this now, you guys voted for us to do this, so, when we prepared the plans and specs.
Right, we
So-
voted to go out for bids,
Right.
but we didn't vote that we were gonna do the
No,
project.
I understand that. I mean, it's not like we just came up with this and brought it to you and you're
No,
seeing it
right.
for the first time.
I know.
Okay.
And I already, at that point in time, had questions whether or not, but to go out for bids, find the actual numbers. You know, I think I even mentioned that we had roads that, you know, we only do a couple blocks because we run
Yeah.
out of money and we've got other stuff. And then
we're
we
gonna,
also, at the beginning of the year, when we set the budget, went and said that we were gonna hold back our spending and start taking care of what needs to get done. And I don't know if the trails are at the top of the list.
I know we're gonna need a new roof on that hockey arena up there.
So,
And
Oh.
that parking lot in the hockey arena, that's a disaster.
so,
Well, I mean, you know, certainly Ben's not here this evening to maybe address some of the priority road projects and stuff we need to be looking at as well. I don't know that we necessarily throw this totally out if we're not willing to say we're gonna move forward on it. You know, if we continue that discussion, I don't know if it means tabling it and discussing with Ben in between now and the next meeting. He'll be here at that meeting as well to maybe address some of those things. I don't know what.
We had
Thoughts
kind
are
of
with
taken the
that, or-
trails and slotted it into here because it was kind of between the seal coat plan and it was between, you know, when we look at our different capital improvement plans of our seal coating plan and our mill and over plan and our reconstruct plan, and this was kind of a gap. And then we said, okay, well, let's take care of our trails. That was kind of the theory behind it. If you want to table it until Ben has the opportunity to be here to address it, you know, I'm sure that would be fine as well. But, I mean, there was a method to why we went with the trails this year. And part of that was because we did all the new road work on Park Road and Willow and the new trail along the campground, and the county redid the Wobegon Trail, and then you get on the trail spur and it's a mess. And it's kind of a wreck. And so we felt
we needed to step it up a little bit on our portion of that trail. So that was kind of the background on how we got here.
And I understand all that, that's just general background investigation work to see what we've all got, but now when it comes down to actually spending that money, isn't there a better place to put it for right now, is what I'm asking. So if we want, maybe Ben's got another financial way to cover it so it can happen, but maybe we wait until Ben has a chance to better look at it.
Well, I guess I didn't have an opportunity to talk to him between getting this and stuff myself, so.
Right, and I haven't had a chance to either, so.
That'd be the only thing is seeing if where those other priorities are for street projects. Otherwise, there's always things that need to be done. This will need to be done. So, one way or the other, we're gonna end up paying for it, and how much is it gonna be at what time we actually do the work? I think that, the arena roof and parking lot are certainly things that need to be done, but I don't know that really relates to street-related projects and stuff. Maybe the parking lot, you could say, but
Right.
I think that arena's got a whole another project conversation, so.
Yeah.
Yes, so what's the council's wishes?
Let's table it till Ben's here.
Is that a motion?
That'll be a motion. Okay.
Okay. We have a motion to table it until we can get more information from Ben, from Diane. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Joe will second it. Any other comments or questions? Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. 7D, accept resignation of full-time patrol officer.
So the city has received a letter of resignation from full-time police officer Eric Grabmeyer. The resignation to be effective May 2nd, which was yesterday. So we're looking to accept the resignation of Eric Grabmeyer effective May 2, 2023.
Do I have a motion to accept the resignation?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Heidi. I will second it.
I have a question. What if we turn it down and we don't accept it, then he has to stay as a police officer?
He's gone
Yeah,
anyway.
I know, I'm just kidding.
So, got a motion and a second. I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. 7E, approve advertising for full-time patrol officer.
So with the resignation of Officer Grabmeyer, Chief Fredericks is requesting the department to be authorized to seek a replacement. So what we're looking for is to authorize the advertisement for the full-time patrol officer.
Do I have a motion to authorize the advertisement?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Joe. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Shallen. Discussion. I take it the police department was pretty confident we were gonna allow this, considering they've been advertising that position on social media for the last 2 days. So,
Well, they came to me and said, the class is graduating this Friday, or maybe tomorrow,
okay,
and we wanted to get it out there and get it over to the class and on the post board before all these graduating classes dispersed.
okay.
And so I said, well, I guess you can advertise it, and if they don't allow you to do it, we'll pull it down. So
Okay,
Yeah.
they did come and talk to me about it before they did it.
all right. We have a motion and a second. I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. 7F, approve appointment of campground manager.
So following the previous appointment of Bruce Berg as a campground for 2023, a change in plans prompted him to decline the appointment. So on April 27th, Fred Tice was interviewed for the position, and we're recommending he be appointed. So the request is to appoint Fred and Nancy Tice as the campground managers for 2023.
Questions?
Were they part of the co-appointment people, right? We had 2 different ones, or a backup and a main one? Is that how we
What's
did
that?
that? Did we have a
Oh, yeah.
backup and a main one appointed?
Yeah, the backup we appointed earlier.
Yeah, so the Tices weren't the backup and now just taken over as the main one? This is totally
Correct.
different? Okay, just wanted
It's
to make
totally
sure.
different
I
people.
couldn't remember the names, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions? Do I have a motion to appoint Fred and Nancy Tice as campground managers?
So moved.
Motion by Heidi, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Joe. Call the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. 7G, approve resolution 2023-34 authorizing execution of purchase agreement for land acquisition for the airport project.
So this is out at the airport, and the FAA airport regulations have changed in the last few years, and so we had to update our 20-year capital improvement plan for the airport to include acquisition of land within the runway protection zone. And previously, an easement over that land was sufficient, but now the FAA is saying, no, we want you to own that land. So the land across 186 from the end of the turf runway, it lies almost entirely within the RPZ and the airport safety zone. So it was identified as a property eligible for 90% funding by the FAA and potentially 5% by MnDOT. The city and the airport board, we've been working to secure a purchase agreement for the property and are ready to put that agreement in writing. The purchase price is $360,000. There will also likely be relocation assistance funding that is also grant eligible. And what that funding is if they can't find a similar property for that price, the FAA will help find a similar property, so they're not having to downgrade. If the council authorizes the execution of the purchase agreement, then the final grant application will be submitted for funding. So it's all connected to each other. So this would authorize us to execute it. They still have to sign their side of it too, but we wanted to make sure the city was, move forward first. So what we're looking to is approve resolution 2023-34 authorizing the execution of the documents.
Questions?
Isn't there a timeline that the FAA was wanting this to, like, are we still?
Right, if we don't, we're coming up on the deadline for a 2023 grant, and we can't write the grant until we have a signed purchase agreement. So it's like, if the deadline passes and we don't have the signed purchase agreement, it'll put it out for another year, in
Okay,
2024.
all right. I'm assuming, like most of the other grants, this is a situation where we would pay to purchase and then get reimbursed down the road?
Yes, that is how those work.
Any other questions, concerns? Do I have a motion to approve resolution 2023-34?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Shallon, do I
I'll
have a
second.
second? Heidi seconded. Call the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Unfinished business, nature energy update.
So now that the public meeting that you were all at with Nature Energy presented its proposal to the city and the ag community, the city council needs to start talking about next steps. Nature Energy would like some feedback from how the council perceives the project, and if there are any issues they would like further information on. The next steps could potentially include a public information meeting for the general public. They would come if we wanted to sit down around a table in a workshop session with the city council to get some specific questions answered. We have the utility needs assessment with the PUC. And of course, then there would be potential annexation proceedings if they purchase adjacent property to the city, and then if it's in the city, a conditional use permit for the project itself. So this is kind of some of the next steps, but what they're looking for is to keep moving forward. But they are looking for some feedback or consensus from the city council that, do you need more information? Do you want to do you have some more questions that you need to answer? Kind of, how are you feeling about this? Can they keep moving forward? And I think Heidi can speak to that. She's the one that's been pretty closely involved with them. And if you have something to add.
Not a whole lot. I think it would just be, it's been requested, and I think it would behoove us to have more public input, not just the ag community. That might also spur and answer some questions from the council. So we could maybe combine kind of that special workshop meeting with some sort of public input type of informational meeting as well. Nature Energy does, of course, need a consensus from the full council to keep moving forward with this project as part of their movements through what they consider gates. So this isn't putting us in any actual agreement to, let's break ground tomorrow. This is just a movement to keep moving forward.
Any other comments?
I guess just how you described, I mean, sounds like a fine sort of plan, I guess. I don't know. Having another public meeting that's not just for the farmers, I think would be something that would be beneficial for other questions that could potentially come up.
Actually, each one of them next steps, I think, would fit in. Because we're
Right.
definitely going to need a
Right.
meeting with the PUC, an extra meeting with the general public. This is new to us as anybody, so
Right.
to have a workshop meeting with the council, I think would work because that would educate us more on what's actually going to happen. So I think all 5 of those things that Vicky listed would be things that we should look at. Overall, I think the meeting with the farmers that came in, I would say it was fairly positive. Yeah, you're always gonna have those naysayers out there that have already made up their mind on certain things. But the main thing is the ones that are for it are the forward thinkers. The ones that are gonna look at, okay, government's gonna control us on this aspect and this aspect and this aspect, and it's all gonna come back to cost us money. Here's an opportunity, maybe we can work this in and help eliminate some of this. So like, the people that are actually looking what the future could be for them being a farm and being a farmer, I think changes the whole concept. So I think it's something that we have to keep looking at. So,
So would you like to have a workshop session with them, where we can sit around a table and kind of be more specific? Or is that something you want to have your questions answered at a public meeting? I mean, like at a information session where we can invite people to come some evening?
the information meeting for the general public, I think, would be just like what we did with the farmers.
Right.
Basically just let them come in, see the presentation, and ask questions after that.
Okay.
And I could envision that having, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
No,
you. I
that's
could
fine.
envision that having different questions than the farmers are coming at it from one
Totally.
aspect of some of the technicals, where the general public would have completely different questions.
And you could provide me with questions and things that you need to have answered, and I could get that to them, which they could either answer back or include that in their presentation, because other people might have those same questions.
Right. And one of the things that, and Heidi had mentioned it when her and I have talked before, was some of the standards that they're gonna meet. Are they gonna meet European standards, or are they meeting USA standards? Is there a difference? They're talking about the stacks that are 100 feet in the air. Is that European standards, or is it US standards? So that kind of questions, because basically, like a lot of people in town that have talked to me about this, I even told them, I says, and no offense, Heidi, I always said, well, Heidi's not the most farm girl type there is out there. If there's any smell of manure around, she's gonna notice it right away. And she was standing next to the building and said she couldn't smell it. So it's kind of like,
And that's not something that I can even guarantee by word of mouth, because people, just because I say it, will they necessarily believe me?
Well, that's
If I'm
just it.
for a project, are they thinking that I'm just saying that so that I can, keep
Yeah.
the ball rolling?
Right.
But the difference that I've seen primarily in the use of the technology that they've implemented, that is their standard, that is their blueprint, is specific to the type of controls they have within their buildings and the structures that they use to house and transport, which is all vacuumed and, and we can get into that at that meeting, but just to quickly kind of I don't know, give my own input and feedback about what was specifically smelled while we were there, is we got to smell the worst of it when they were doing some maintenance work with doors open where the vacuum sealed buildings, we smelled what they call the deep litter. And I don't remember what the farmers here call it because I'm not that farm girl. But at the worst of it, and then also what we would expect on a day-to-day basis. So, but I do have some similar questions like you had that have been brought up with the stacks, how high the stacks are, is it to the same level that so yeah, I think that it's good to have us have our questions as well as welcome the community
I think
for their questions.
the more education that we put into this to the public and the other farmers that weren't able to come, I think the better it is for us.
Yeah.
Shows transparency.
And even on the technical side of things, the farmer side of things, to make sure this plant, is running from a business side, there's going to be, and I'm hoping maybe that Nikki can put it out onto our Facebook page, but the YouTube presentation, or it was videotaped, so just so the general public who may watch this on their RVIG station, they can look it up and watch that as well, that special meeting that we had.
One thing I would ask, Vicki, is that they watch their time constraints. If they're asking for an hour, keep it an hour. If they want 2 hours, keep it 2 hours. Don't go 4 hours. I can't stay here that long. It's too long. And the questions just go on and on and on, and he keeps talking and talking and talking. I'm sure those questions could have been answered a lot faster. He was too slow. But I did learn something from watching his presentation. I thought the presentation was actually very good.
I don't think that there should be a time limit on this important of a business decision from the council perspective, but I understand,
I don't wanna sit
respecting
here
the
all
people who are
afternoon.
attending, because it
Yeah.
was advertised 1 to 2, but we should take as much time as we need, I think, to be sure of ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, the time constraint thing, certainly I understand why we don't want to spend 4 hours here, but I mean, if the public needs their questions answered, the public needs their questions answered. That's not fair to tell them, oh, we're cutting you off. That's the way this needs to be conducted is to make sure people get their questions answered, whether it be the public or the council. I do think we need to get more information, input from the public. There's certainly, some thoughts that I would need to have, more consideration for and questions answered to see whether or not this project makes sense for Sauk Center or not. So, I mean, the more work we do and due diligence is appropriate. So, I mean, I think those steps are public information. Obviously the PUC will need to do theirs, but the workshop for the council as well are probably important things that we do with this as far as the next step before we, rubber stamp or green light anything.
Main question that I've been getting from a lot of people is what's Sauk Center gonna gain out of this? Well, what did we gain with Walmart when they came in? What did we gain with Fellings? That's all, we don't have that crystal ball. And we don't need something that's gonna come in 20 years later, be sitting empty. That could happen with any business that comes into town. Things didn't work out the way they wanted on their business plan, so it's kind of like, I know it's a tough question and it sounds coarse when you go, that could be anything. They don't want to hear that because they've already starting to formulate their mind, no, this ain't gonna work. There's a lot of them out there, so.
Well, and the one piece that they did mention, just to go off of that a little bit, was that they weren't coming and asking for financial things from the local governments, and that they were hiring local people as well. So I mean, I see those all as benefits.
Right.
I think we also have our own responsibility to not put all of our eggs in one basket. If there is movement on this project that does result in, a uptick in our tax base, and then suddenly we're just becoming reliant on that, or like we would with any business, and then if something were to happen down the road that leaves us to a detriment, that
Right.
when, we got to think about that on our side.
But that's the reason why the people put us in office.
Right.
Is to do that. And to take as much time as it takes to do it. So,
One question I would have is how quickly are they wanting to get some of these checked off and move on to the next stages? I know they had mentioned possible, what was it, a 5-year timeline before anything would potentially be up and running, if I heard that correctly, or?
More.
Their build plan is 18 to 24, no, 12 to 24 months. It's a 2-year time plan to build.
right.
But the process to get through their gates, what they call their gates, I think Bob and Matt agreed that it would at least take 8 to 9 months to get the agreements with farmers. They'd have to have 80% of their manure already locked up before they would, commit.
Plus then
So,
they got all the other permits and everything else that governmental agencies are gonna hand them besides. That is gonna take some time too.
So I guess what I was really curious was how quickly are they wanting to move through some of these things with us? Is there a timeline that they've got right now, or?
I think they'd like to move as quickly as possible.
Right, that's
They
what
just
I,
want to keep moving
Yeah.
forward.
Yes.
right.
And one thing is that they get a consensus from us that they were gonna move forward and we work on these other meetings, then that just gets them a farther step, because they're gonna have to start the permitting process, and I would say the earliest that they probably, if everything fell into place, the easiest, probably late this fall, maybe starting to move some dirt. And then 2 years after that before they'd be up and running.
That's under a
So-
perfect scenario.
That's a
Yeah.
perfect scenario.
Right.
So, that's one of the things that we gotta look at too. So, and as long as they're not asking us for anything, it isn't gonna affect our budget.
Right.
I'm looking at this as a positive thing, and I appreciate the council willing to keep moving forward with open ears, open eyes, and keep the ball rolling, from my personal opinion.
I agree.
Okay? You two good for moving?
Well, I mean,
forward?
I think we continue the conversations and stuff, with the meetings and everything. I think that makes the most sense. I mean, I don't think we're at a point where we're going to say, no,
Right.
we're not doing this anymore. But I think it's, having these meetings and learning more and finding out if we're interested in continuing forward or if we're, going to say, well, you know what, this isn't the right fit and thank you for your time. I
And the
mean,
main thing is they gotta be able to buy the land to go there first.
A
Yeah.
lot of moving pieces happening at the same
Right.
time.
A lot of moving pieces right now, so, so general consensus that, we proceed with the next steps?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have no new business. Consent agenda, we have a schedule of claims, unpaid claims of $60,120.66. Paid claims, $159,689, for a total of $219,809.66. We have resolution number 2023-33, accepting contributions of $140.85 from the men's card playing group to be allocated to the senior center. And on behalf of the city and the council, I want to thank that group for their contribution. Is there any other questions about the consent calendar? If none, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Diane, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Heidi. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Informational items.
Just a few things on information. The Middle Sauk Water Festival is going to be May 11th this year. It is going to be in Sauk Center. It was actually Melrose's turn to host it, but their park isn't ready to host several hundred fourth graders right now because of their reconstruct they did last year. So it'll be in Sinclair Lewis Park unless the weather's bad. It'll be in the ice arena. Dustin Von Walde at the Police Department is scheduled to receive a longevity increase according to the union contract on May 15th, 15 years of service. The residential rental program, we had sent out letters to all the landlords. We've been receiving applications back. We have our contract with the contractor, his insurance, provided him with the applications, and now he's at the point where he is scheduling his inspections. So we'll be moving forward along that. It'll just be on a rolling basis as they come in. And then the 2023 ambulance actually arrived today. So it took some time to get it here, but it's here, the old one's gone, and they're back in business. So, and that's what I have.
Any questions about those items? If not, that brings us to the end of our agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Heidi. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Joe. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Meeting adjourned.